Well, I must be doing something right to create so much interest and backlash from the Democratic Party. I mean, some of it is a surprise, but I think we expected to see some of the level of vitriol, but not to the extent it's been.
It may take a political newcomer to feel surprised by the level of vitriol in politics. That was Howard Schultz, former Starbucks CEO, whose net worth is roughly equivalent to the GDP of a small country. He's considering an independent run for president. And as you just heard him mention, the field at large isn't exactly rolling out the red carpet. Here are the headlines he's staring down at this morning. Livid liberals try to bully Schultz out of 2020. Don't help elect Trump. Howard Schultz heckled as an egotistical billionaire at his book launch. Could Howard Schultz help reelect the president? And the coup de grace, the unbearable stupidity of Howard Schultz's presidential fantasy. That's just a sampling of the political grenades being lobbed at Schultz. And by and large, it's the left holding the pins. Axios explains these Democrats want to prevent the coffee king from siphoning anti-Trump votes and perhaps unintentionally helping reelect President Trump. We're hearing threats of boycotts and social isolation, attacks on Starbucks, and emotional, insistent lobbying of his advisors. One of Washington's best wired party operatives told me, I've talked to 6 dozen Democrats, and the overwhelming sentiment is that he will be pushed out by this incredible wave of disgust and disdain rolling his way. Joining us, my friend, former Republican strategist, now an advisor to Howard Schultz. You've been advising him for a long time, Steve. You're getting some of this vitriol coming your way, and I want to talk about Howard Schultz in a minute, but I want to talk to you about what the last 72 hours have been like.
Oh, look, I mean, I've had it's tough. It's a tough business out there.
We thought Sarah Palin was tough.
It's a tough business. Look, I think that when you think about Howard Schultz and you look at the last week, at long last, there might be someone in America's political life who isn't intimidated by the Twitter mob. And I think that's a good thing. You know, for me, I've been at it for a long time. If you're in this business, people say mean things about you, and I suppose if your kids love you and you have a couple good friends and your dogs like you, that everything's going to be okay. And
well, you and I have always been good with our dogs, but I mean, it's more than the Twitter mob. I mean, I think all 3 of you are concerned about, and just in fairness to the critics of an independent run, the 2016 election was decided by a razor-thin margin, and the third-party candidates could have done just what they're afraid they did, siphoned off enough votes to tip the election.
Well, let's look at what Howard Schultz has said that has set off this frenzy. He said that I'm seriously considering running for president. It's the right of every American, should they choose to do so. And if I do so, I'll do it as a centrist independent candidate. He also has said he will not be a spoiler in the race. He has also said he views it as an urgent national imperative to remove this morally unfit president from office. He believes that. He's not Jill Stein. He's not Ross Perot. He's not Ralph Nader. What he said is he wants to have a conversation with the American people to see if perhaps the hour of disruption may be at hand for our utterly broken political system. And make no mistake about it, the brokenness of that political system is what resulted in the election of Donald John Trump. Are we fated in perpetuity to be in this cycle of revenge politics, of self-interest, where the American people are not represented, their future is not represented, or can we do something better? And so 600 days before the election, he's asked a question. And so we decry rightly the illiberalism of Donald Trump, his attacks on the press, his attacks on the rule of law. But what about the illiberalism of people who claim to oppose Trump, who shout down people from the public square? It seems that for some, the progressive utopia that is on the horizon is one that will not come about by persuasion, but by imposition. Because you better dare not speak out of line, out of turn, no deviation, or you are shouted down. And by the way, the people who are doing the shouting almost universally are the same people who said Joe Biden shouldn't run because it was Hillary Clinton's turn. And they're the same people who put their thumb on the scale for Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders because he couldn't win. And they guaranteed us that Donald Trump would never be elected.
Well, some of them are sitting right here, and they can all speak for themselves better than I can speak for them. But let me just say, what about the argument that Donald Trump wasn't a Republican or a Democrat? He was a Trumpist. He went in and changed the Republican Party. Why can't someone like Schultz go in and try to win inside a Democratic primary and change the party to be more centrist if that's his mission? Why not just go win in the two lanes that historically elect our president?
I think when we look at the American
primary Trump.
I think when we look at the American Constitution, there is no mention of political parties. In fact, and I think it's important.
But you don't disagree that that's how we choose presidents. Why not?
Well, we have chosen president by all different manners. I mean, the era of the modern primary of direct election, as opposed to the back room by delegates, is a recent invention in American history. I mean, George Washington matters for a couple of reasons in American history, but one of them should be the warning he issued when he left office. What did he warn about? What was his warning that he sent in his farewell into posterity? He warned about factions, about political parties, about tribes at war with each other
you can
against the national
out-history me
interest.
asleep, better than I can awake. But my point is, we have never. People are terrified, and people are terrified that you, one of the most visible Trump critics, are now behind someone that they feel like could take away the Democrats' best chance of toppling Donald Trump.
Nobody is voting. The election is 2 years away.
We're already scared.
Is 2 years away. He has said unequivocally he won't be a spoiler in this race. If at some point in the future, when he goes out and meets the American people, if it's the case that it's a legitimate three-way race, he'll make a decision at the appropriate time to be a candidate or not to be a candidate. What he has said is that when he looks out, the system, in his view, a view I share, it is broken. It is shattered. The trust of the American people has been broken. And it's not just the institutions of government. It's generally big institutions, whether it's big media, whether it's big business. Across the board, we see institutional failure, and it's that institutional failure that has put us in this position.
I just think that you and I deal in a world of public sentiment, and public sentiment would be more favorable if you were primarying Donald Trump as a Republican or you were running as a Democrat than the idea of someone with nothing but money to spend running as an independent.
Well, we will find out. And by the way, let me say something about the man I know, because I think it matters who this person is. He wasn't born on third base. He was born to the projects in Canarsie, New York. His father beat him. He grew up dirt poor. He said when he was loaded up with debt, he had an idea and some guts and some vision and a passion for coffee. And he went out and kept that key in the pocket for that store for 40 years. He said, my only goal was to start the type of company my dad never got a chance to work for. He's the company in America to give everyone health insurance, part-time employees too. Everyone got stock ownership. Everyone got a free college education. This is somebody who has practiced conscious capitalism. He recognizes that there's a crisis in American capitalism, that income inequality is an enormous deal. What he did when he was chairman of Starbucks is he kept 2 chairs in the room that were empty for every board meeting. 1 chair was for the customer and 1 chair was for the employees. Let me ask you this question. Who in a meeting in Washington, D.C. has an empty chair looking at the American people? Let's look at health care. You know, Mitt Romney has the idea, Romney Care, Barack Obama takes it, Republicans are for it, so the Democrats are against it. It's broken.
I don't think anyone disagrees
let's see
with
what happens.
We have to sneak in a break, and then everyone here is going to jump in. Don't go anywhere.